Hi everybody, this is Carrick from Angry Centaur Gaming, and today I'm well coiffed, spritzed with the finest perfume of royalty and discreet gentlemen, and prepared to review a game so amazing even the developer didn't think your eyes could handle it if it was delivered above 30 frames per second. Pip pip, my good subscribers, that's right, it's Assassin's Creed Unity for the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. Remember that this review is caffeinated, which means coming into your eyes and ears at the speed of light and sound and without any regard for your personal safety or care if you get lost while listening to it. Assassin's Creed Unity tells the tale of Arno, a youth who sadly loses his father but gains a mentor on the same day and grows up to be approximately 1,023% less douchebag than almost all the other protagonists in the Assassin's Creed games that have come before. This guy is so surprisingly normal and well developed that the embarrassment of riches, of mental disabilities, and bad decision making of the past protagonists seems like it's comparing Jersey Shore to a Mensa meeting, and not even the normal Mensa meetings, but like the high stakes ones where people take IQ tests for fun and guess each other's weight using base 7. You see, Arno loses his father to a filthy murderer and then loses another adoptive father to a filthy murderer, and that's when it dawns on you that this poor guy just has some shit luck when it comes to filthy murderers. But luckily, no one realized that his adoptive family had connections, and like the French Revolution era Liam Neeson, Arno has a particular set of skills and he's going to use them to shoot, stab, slice, cut, bash, choke, gut, and eviscerate every single motherfucker in the game that even looks at him wrong. It's best to ignore that Arno has no training whatsoever in either fighting or running or leaping or any of the other things I mentioned, or well, anything, but he can still do it. In fact, many times throughout the game, it's best to ignore a great deal of stuff that just occurs. But let's not ignore the review. That's it for the backstory. Now let's dive into the meat and potatoes like the hedonistic pigs we are. Graphics are up first. They are all over the place. Excellent facial animation and skin texture in both the cutscenes and in the main game are offset by some of the worst next-gen hair I've ever experienced. Imagine going to your pantry or junk drawer, taking out 4,000 rubber bands, cutting them to length, and gluing them all the fuck all over your own head because you thought it would look cool. Yeah, that's the hair. It's insanely bad. It's not next generation, it's past generation, and it's barely that. Now, as you traverse the game world, you're going to encounter interiors in some buildings that look so close to life like it's shocking, and then randomly the game will remind you that the wizard behind the curtain snorting VCR tape cleaner and watching porn, and the entire thing begins to fall apart in ways that are almost unimaginable, with clipping the likes of which no man or woman should be forced to watch without signing some kind of danger waiver. I'm gonna be honest here. I'm glad the game's at 30 frames per second. You know why? Because as the game falls apart, as the game drops frames during cutscenes for no reason, or people change both gender and entire subtype right in front of you while walking, I realized I simply couldn't handle it in 60 frames per second. It would be just too much hilarious awesome at one time. Sure, the game looks good at times because it does, and it can go 1, 2, or even 3 hours with any real issues with the frame rate. Then you will drop into an area, turn the camera around, and be greeted by a wicked case of judder like the Matrix is shattering around you. And even more shocking, like a 48-hour flu, it won't leave the game for another couple hours. The PS4 version handles the frame rate a bit better, but not by any measurable amount, and in fact at times performs worse in some areas than the Xbox One. It is so hit and miss that the game can fool you for hours, making you think, wow, you know, this isn't that bad at all. The graphics are actually crisp. The world has an insane number of NPCs walking around doing random things with excellent animations, and then suddenly a fucking cobbler standing on top of a nearby building polishing some dude's shoes who isn't there because he's down on street level sitting on a chair that doesn't exist in a pose that looks scarily like he's getting a street side blowjob. The one thing that hits really well all the time though is the texture detail. It is universally fantastic, with excellent attention to realistic debris, aging, and color throughout. You can also outfit Arno in an assortment of garb, and everything you purchase and wear looks really great. Additionally, the architecture as a whole is just as everyone probably expects from this game, which is phenomenal. Lastly, the pop-in is a thing of wonder. Sometimes, and depending on the locations, you barely notice it, and then it rears its head in the form of people materializing 2 feet in front of you, carts, bodies, groups of people. Nothing is safe from the pop-in monster. The game has some really good stuff going on, but that's like saying if I grab my favorite painting, smash the shit out of it, and put it in a paper bag, I would still think it was worth the same when I tried to hawk it for drug money. That's not how the world works. The entire package is so haphazard that the good things are easily missed and worth less. Overall, to be honest, it's patchy as hell. Sound, music, and voice.
I suppose a simple address would be too mundane.
Man, this sounds phenomenal. Despite the fact that when I walk through crowds, the entire gender base of the crowd would sway like presidents do in voting polling, the real winner here was the sound. Walking the world is an audio treat, with ambient sounds delivered so clearly I kept thinking I was going to be run down by a messenger or roughed up by one of the various street toughs inhabiting the streets. The entire world is simply breathtakingly alive with sound, and walking through the streets of a city has never been this realistic. The mixing is excellent, with gunshots and explosions swelling from the low end of the audio spectrum and then crackling delightfully into the normal areas of the audio spectrum where they should be. Swords clash, bodies thump, walls fall, and debris rains down in excellent audio brilliance. The sound alone made me feel like I was living in a breathing and living city, far more than even the graphics. It is simply breathtaking. And music. Unity seems to go more for the classical route for music than the early games, and it roots the game in its time frame rather well, whether it is small ditties being played by street hustlers on a busy corner or the full classical music bellowing from a downstairs ballroom. The music is time period correct and fitting with the game world. I'm not sure whether I like this music more or less than the previous games, but I can say that it cemented the time frame in a way past games actually haven't. Now, that doesn't mean there's not some techno tracks and so forth, it just means overall it's classical. Voice.
Without being seen, we have eyes everywhere.
Really? Seems visibility would be a problem. Wouldn't you prefer something with a view?
This place has served us well for 600 years, pisspot.
And how...
They nailed this as well. Arno comes across exactly as his background and his upbringing have suggested. Those around him sound exactly as they expected to be, and the acting is done with the same gravity and situational awareness you would expect from, say, a motion picture. Regardless of the game as a whole, I feel that the voices here might be the best I've experienced in an Assassin's Creed game, minus one or two misses. Walking the streets and listening to the passerbys has a feeling of fullness that the past games didn't, and entering the sweaty, unwashed masses of a vocal demonstration is almost an assault on your ears, as the various voices create a virtual traffic jam of dissent and anger and revulsion at their status in life. Every character from the Marquise de Sade to your biological father are pitch perfect and tonally aware of the situation as it happens. No random reading the lines here, it's simply excellent voice work. Up next is gameplay. As Arno, you're on a mission of vengeance to find and bring to deadly, bloody justice his adopted father's killer. You're also involved in another throwaway generic adventure in modern time as well, but make no mistake, Arno is the main character and the basis for the entire crux of the story, though there are some other things that occur. As you adventure in typical Assassin's Creed fashion, exploring, taking on missions to further your objectives, upgrading locations you've purchased, and making friends and enemies like a sports agent, you begin to notice some oddness here and there. First, the movement's been adjusted, and now you can freely traverse down a building, and the addition is like meeting an old lover after years apart, blissful but messy. And that's how all the movement is. There's a good deal more animations, and Arno looks a part of a parkour specialist circa today as he flips and spins and wastes movement on every leap. Sometimes Arno just flatly says fuck you to reality as well, and doesn't even try to come close to grabbing a handhold as he climbs, while other times his movement is supernaturally canny and looks perfectly performed. Then you realize someone decided to remove the fast run option in lieu of a cover button, and now you go from a walk to a sprint without any pretense. Inside buildings can be some of the most frustrating encounters I've ever experienced with an Assassin's Creed game, with Arno catching on to random shit as he climbs up, climbs down, wrestles the camera, drops a bomb, climbs up onto a cabinet, climbs down, slices a bad guy, gets shot, climbs up the drapes, oh no, drapes aren't climbable, gets shot, turns, runs, tries to kill the guy and leaps down the spiral staircase instead to land with a wet plop on the ground surrounded by enemies. The movement is loose, to put it mildly, and it's a disservice because the speed at which he moves and the new abilities means that you'll want to attempt to do these awesome things, but you'll find yourself humping a cabinet more often than anyone with a wooden dick would like. Controlling a game is a fine loop of reaction, input, output, and reaction again. Somehow, sometimes, it feels like someone added smoke break and contract Ebola to the loop in this game. Now, combat isn't much changed, though the parry buttons seem to be a little bit tighter in the overall timing, and you have an assortment of weapon types that all have special kills, which is awesome, especially the one with the gaff hook. I could get more descriptive, but it's a fucking gaff hook, so almost no imagination is needed. In fact, overall, combat seems the least changed in this game as a whole, with some new animations and kill moves, but not a lot more, really. So if that's true, maybe upgrading Arno's the answer. Let's check it out. First, there are a bunch of currencies in the game. Anyone who plays mobile games knows the dreaded multiple currency curse. It means microtransactions, and they do exist here in the form of hacking currency, like hacking Arno from the future, but actually from the past. And it's true that you can upgrade and hack particular items using this currency, but I don't see the need. Upgrading can also be done via in-game money, and it comes at such a high rate that the hacking currency seems to be truly made just to piss people off. And let's be honest, all it really does is add a bit more damage for the sword right away versus waiting a couple minutes to buy it normally. Instead of being distasteful, I ignored it completely in lieu of the normal upgrade paths, and there are a ton. There are also boosts you can get via microtransaction, and that leaves me a bit conflicted. Every single Assassin's Creed game has had a couple missions that killed my soul because I just could not get through some of them, or it took me many tries. So a boost to give me 3 minutes of extra hitting power or 3 minutes of extra hiding power is actually awesome, but could have been done within the game itself without that microtransaction. Now next up is character customization. It's taken a major step in the right direction here, with weapons of all styles and clothing of a large variety being available for money or as quest rewards. This is most likely due to the fact that the co-op missions have been added into the game, and it would have been odd if everyone was the same black-clad assassin. However, with so many changes to the equipment, all of them offering small bonuses, I can see how meeting someone who looks identical to you is going to be a very rare thing indeed. Personally, I love the options, and the ability to pick a vast number of color changes for the armor meant that even the same assassin's outfit looked drastically different in the color black as it did in my new chosen color, light purple. So as the light purple assassin Arno, I could also upgrade my skills, as I got creed points for performing actions like finishers and silent kills within the game. It's true that you can start out a bit less powerful than past Assassin's Creed games, but let's be honest, Arno's just a normal kid anyway, so having him start out weaker makes organic sense, and the game was fine with that change, no problems there. As you're exploring the world, it will introduce you to some new additions like rifts. Imagine little pockets of time and space that get corrupted, and you can explore them and take actions within them to basically correct the error or escape before you're splattered like a digital zit by the collapsing program. These missions are the typical variety, which means some are throwaway and some are interesting, but I found myself genuinely enjoying the locations and the unique time errors that the rifts sort of offered for me to see. And yes, co-op is also in the game, and yes, before anyone freaks out, you can do them alone, which is awesome for those of us who are antisocial or who just have a fear that other assassins will laugh at your choice of color garb. I'm telling you, purple's awesome, check it out. These quests are actually very interesting quests for the most part, and add another layer onto the game. You can play them with groups, or you can play them by yourself. There's also a companion app that allows access to further game features and rewards within the game. Some are gonna chafe mildly at this, as this means some content is actually locked out unless you have the app and a compatible phone and or tablet. I am one of the people without a compatible phone or tablet, so I feel your pain. I can also say I didn't give a flying shit after a couple minutes anyway, but your mileage is going to vary. However, here's a problem. Aside from all the graphical issues, the entire AI in the game combined has the mental ability of a box filled with lava rocks, human fat, pork rinds, and performs in a battle about as spectacularly as that sounds, which means not at all. Whether they're not noticing you, attacking you through a wall, or standing, staring at you with their sword out as if both of you are in a kindergarten game of show me yours and I'll show you mine, the AI is simply the A, as in just artificial. Then there are the bugs. After a couple patches, many are gone, and newcomers to the game will get an experience that's probably less massive load of unbelievable bugs and more just shit ton of bugs. There's enough bugs here to make you sit back and think, how the hell could this be passed? And if you think once, you will have thought at least 4 times as much as whoever cleared this game through QA. NPCs leaping into the air to stand on building corners, NPCs changing gender, people appearing then disappearing, clipping through walls. It's a tremendous achievement in fuckery. But you know what? And this is gonna sound insane. The game is actually brilliant fun. Despite the clipping, the frame rate dips, the AI that seems bent on failure, the game is actually a blast to play. Walking the city streets was a wonderful time exploring the world, the missions were fun and unique, and overall the gameplay, even with the control hitches, still made me feel like an assassin extraordinary. Sure, Arno moves a bit more like a thug who's learned some ninja style on a late night USA channel. He's a dangerous SOB, and killing fools is insanely fun, and there are just so many things to do in the world that it can become almost overkill. Thankfully, as you move around, you can remove the HUD completely or filter out the HUD to make traversing the world just a little bit less noisy, but the game is just fun. It seems like it's trying to do so much that it begins to creak and groan under the strain of massive NPC numbers, multiple currencies, changes to the upgrade paths, and addition of co-op, and then also spastic colon movement. So all that being said, what does Assassin's Creed Unity do right? You know what? It's fun. Yeah, despite everything, I had a blast, and I'm just going to admit it. It was at times, and I was frustrated at times too, but I had a blast at times. Excellent architecture, textures, and character models. The cities are incredible to explore and feel more alive than I would say any game in the past, in my opinion. Amazing customization options that really did allow me to finally make the assassin I wanted to. Co-op is there. Sound, music, and voice are of the highest quality possible. New moves and new movement abilities are actually very interesting and useful, and again, is fun. So what does Assassin's Creed Unity do wrong? It brutally and efficiently crushes many of the positives I have just listed with a bug count that is higher than all the movies in the Starship Troopers series combined and probably multiplied a couple times. Clipping and movement detection are hit and miss. Movement as a whole is just very, very loose. Microtransactions that don't matter but almost seem like they're there just to piss you off. The story is good, but it's somewhat throwaway. So I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or send it to the guillotine without hesitation rating scale, and this is a barely wait for a sale. Assassin's Creed Unity should be the name of a new hot band made up of the best artists of all the generations and filled to the brim with ideas and artistic talents, but just like too many lead singers, this is a total mess, as each individual fights over the cocaine and groupies, or in this case the game's attention and development time, not to mention the resources within the actual console, and at times the game runs like two cats in a wet bag with moments of silence followed by absolute anarchy. Sadly, I had fun. I say sadly because if I didn't have fun, then a rating of a wait for a sale wouldn't suck so much. Because beneath the surface, the game's fun shines through, but for every single moment where I had fun, something glitched, or the frame rate tanked, or the NPCs in front of me went from being Napoleon-looking soldiers to what looked like Amish women in seconds. For every amazing environment I saw and unique NPC interaction on a street corner I noticed, I saw Arno climb up a building, ignoring every handhold, and just sort of David Blaining his way up the side of a building. Add to that the throwaway futuristic parts of the story, the microtransactions that really just don't need to be there, and you have a game that solidly needs a cohesion patch to bring its group members back together again to sing that awesome #1 single. If that patch comes, I'll update the review, if and only if it makes true substantial changes to the game, because that is what is needed for this game to be an instant buy rating. So that's it, the review's over. Hit thumbs up if you liked it, hit thumbs down if you didn't, and never trust the gender of a French revolutionary. Peace out.